Welcome to Let's Run Fit with D Lit, the podcast where we celebrate the transformative power of fitness and the incredible stories behind it. Today we have a truly inspiring guest joining us. In this episode, we're going to dive into the remarkable journey of Kristy, who moved beyond the confines of weight loss and calorie burn to discover a new mindset of strength, confidence, and self-celebration. From her first half to CrossFit and everything in between, Kristy's story is a testament to the amazing possibilities that unfold when we embrace our bodies and redefine what fitness truly means. So let's lace up our shoes and dive right in. Hi, Kristy. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy that you're here today. Just to start off, can you just give us a brief overview of your health journey and what led you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is fun. It's a first to be on a runner's podcast. I will say that before we start. So I am actually a kitchen confidence coach. I'm a certified health and wellness coach who has had an interesting health journey for, it's going to be 20 years in September. When I turned 30, that's when I realized that enough was enough. I was about 60 pounds overweight and I was using food for comfort. And yep. And I will always say that I'm a recovering emotional eater because I still it still hits me every single day. It just is choices. But I realized at that point, I had a daughter who was 5 and I looked at myself and I was like, I don't even recognize myself anymore. I don't even like myself anymore. And I wanted her to have a mom that was healthy, that could do things with her. And I just wanted her to show her, a different way of life as well. So that's kind of how everything started in my life, is that I wanted to lose the weight. And I feel like that's kind of where a lot of people start, is that it always starts with the weight. We want to lose the weight and then it moves into other areas. And so now what I do is during that time, I became an expert in meal prepping and meal planning because I found that I had control over food when I was able to do that. And I also was able, because I love to eat, I'm a foodie, I love flavor, and I don't like to be bored. So it gave me the opportunity as well to play with food so that I wasn't eating the same grilled chicken, broccoli, and brown rice every single day.
Yeah, I can't do that.
No, me neither. And so I realized that meal prepping is my jam, and that's what I do. And so now what I do is I get to work with women specifically who are over 40, who are tired of the diets, who are tired of the quick fixes. And we really hone into their nutrition, and we use whole foods, and meal prepping and meal planning is a really big part of what I do with the women that I work with.
I'm a big fan of meal prep because if I get all of my cooking done at one time, then I don't have to stress it out, because otherwise I go through this process where about Wednesday, I don't want to cook anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
The lazy way is to just do it all at once and then you just heat up and go. And that's exactly what I do. And it's so much easier for me.
Yes.
So
well, and I'm not even going to say it's lazy. It's intentional that you do that, right? I use the word intention a lot with my clients because you're planning it, right? That's just a way of planning it. Lazy would be not even to do it. So give yourself credit for that.
I like it too, because it prevents me where on one day I think I want this meal. And then sometimes by Wednesday, I don't want it anymore. And then somehow the food goes bad because it's sitting there. Because if you don't want it at the time, you're less likely to cook it. So I cook it while I still want it, and then it's ready to go. And then I'm like, well, I'm not going to waste food. And I just kind of go from there. It's so amazing. Meal prep is just, everyone should be doing some type of meal prep.
Some type of it. Yeah. And there's different ways. And I love that, is that it doesn't have to be the same. You get to figure out how it fits with your lifestyle and your family and then modify it. So it is definitely a system that can ebb and flow with your seasons of life and whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah.
I think a lot of people pictured, like you mentioned before, the chicken, rice, broccoli when they think meal prep.
Yes.
You can meal prep anything. I'll make about 30 burritos at one time and put them in the freezer.
Well, people forget that that's a way of meal prepping, right? So they see it's I mean, social media is wonderful, but it also is one of those things where like meal prep Sunday and then all of the black containers with the chicken, the rice, and the broccoli come out, and that's what you see on the counter, right? And that's like, who wants to do that? So it's funny that you say freezer, like put things in the freezer, because I actually teach live freezer meal prepping classes, and that is exactly what we do. We prep 5 meals together. They go in a bag in the freezer, and then on those nights that are absolutely crazy, you don't feel like cooking, you take the bag out and you pop it in your Instant Pot or slow cooker, and that is in fact a way of meal prepping.
Exactly. And it's better than the frozen pizza.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
So much better. We just went off on a tangent about meal prep, and I love it. I love meal prep. So you mentioned a lot about your mindset cannot talk now. Mindset shifts that kind of happened to you as it kind of got started. So what was like for you, like the true, just actual turning point? I know you mentioned kind of like wanting to help with your daughter. Like, was there a specific event, or was it just kind of all at once and then just one day it was like the straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing?
Yeah. So I think it, like I said, it was that 30th birthday. I still have that picture. That is, like anybody that follows me will know that that picture comes up over and over again, because that is like my defining, like where I drew the line in the sand and was like, enough is enough. However, what I knew I had to do was change the way that I was eating. And so it really led me down a path of like just kind of I was a raw vegan at one time. Yes, that was very difficult. I was a vegetarian. I was like, like
so that's easier.
all of the things. Yeah. Like, yes, raw vegan was very difficult. Do not recommend that. But I mean, I still enjoyed it for a short time. But it wasn't until I realized how the food and my body were connected. Like as far as like, oh, this food makes me feel this way, or this food makes me, feel this way, and have the energy to be able to do the things that I wanted to. That's where then I was able to start incorporating exercise and being able to go to the gym and being able to be like, oh, I wonder like if I could run now, right? Like, oh, I wonder if I could lift weights, like those kind of things. So for me, it all started with food, just because that's where it was deep seated, just comfort food forever. And then even now, like I will tell you, if I have, a carb loaded dinner, I'm probably not going to feel my best, but I'm still going to be able to enjoy it. Just different, because now I know how my body reacts with it. And I think that was the big piece for me, is like, okay, I can't eat everything that I want to eat and be able to do all the things that I want to do.
Yes, that makes exactly. Sense. In some of the conversations that you and I had before we actually sat down to talk today, you kind of mentioned how you had not the greatest mindset when it came to the food and exercise at the beginning. So I know, like, I get where you kind of switch, where like, I have to make a change. But when did you make that second switch to this doesn't have to control my life in a bad way? I can control it, so to speak. So you mentioned control with the meal planning. When did you stop letting it control you and you controlled it, but kept help?
That's good, actually. That's really, really good.
You can steal it.
Yeah, no, I'm totally going to. So what's interesting, it was about 2 years ago. So I joined a CrossFit gym. I'd been doing Beachbody, in my house.
I did Beachbody for a long time. I still have it. I just don't use it anymore.
I mean, I do. It was a great program. It was really great for me, but I found that I was looking for something more. I didn't know what it was, but I was looking for something more. And I'm approaching 50 in September. So that might have like been leading up to it. Who knows? But, I was like, I know that I can do more. Like, I know that there's something else out there. And I have some friends who belong to a CrossFit gym, and I started to see what they were doing. And I was like, man, that is really, really cool. Like, to be able to do that. And so I, sweating palms, went into the gym and talked to them. I didn't even tell my husband that I was doing this, because I was like, it was just so not typical for me. But when I got in there, and I'm going to say probably after the first 6 months, I realized what my body could do.
Oh yeah. And that CrossFit will push you. It's amazing.
My goodness. It will, like, I was broken a couple times, right? But also to being able to come back and being like, wow, I pushed myself. I did that. I wonder if I could do this. And so then it became, and that's actually about the time of the, my story, like when the scale went away too.
Mm-hmm.
So prior to that, I would get up every morning and I would weigh myself. As soon as I got up, I went to the bathroom and then I would strip down before getting in the shower and I would weigh myself to see where I was on that scale, if I was heavier or if I was lighter, right?
I
Even
did
though
that
I had healed.
forever.
Yeah, like,
Ugh.
and quote unquote, right? Even though I had healed myself with food, I was like, I still want to see where I am. Once I began to see how strong I was and what my body could do, it no longer became about the weight on the scale for me and the number. And I was like, I don't even care. And so I actually have tucked that scale. It's probably been, I'm going to say like a good 9 months since I have stepped on the scale. Um, I just feel better. So I don't need to know what I weigh. And my clothes size, they have changed because my muscle is changing, right? And
Oh
my
yeah.
body composition is changing because I am developing the muscle that I always wanted, but I wasn't eating the proper way to be able to fuel that muscle. Right. So I've realized like it's a really great story, those two connecting when you actually feed your muscles and they grow and
Oh yeah.
turn.
It's a huge
Um,
difference.
yeah, it is. And so that really had that is where the mindset came in. And that is where even the coaches, like I'll question something and they'll be like, Kristy, you can do it. You totally can do it. And questioning myself, and I'm like, no, I can't. And they're like, yeah, you can. So here you go. You're going to do this. So I think just in that aspect, the community piece of it and having coaches that believe in you, and then also to believing myself. I've learned to trust myself and my body and do the things that I think are hard that I would have normally shrunk back from. I'm actually now stepping up to doing and being like, okay, I'm going to try this and see what happens.
I love it because everyone has that thing that you try that makes you
Mm-hmm.
realize how strong you are.
Yes.
And you just have to get through, the sweaty palms, anxiety, fear, and just
Yeah.
get there to be able to
Yeah.
actually have that mindset shift because you're like, whoa, I just did that.
Yeah.
Like with my first half marathon, that's what it was for me instead of CrossFit. I trained and I was like, I can't do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I was like, I've
Mm-hmm.
already paid for it. My husband will kill me if I wasted all that money because I signed up really late. So it was super expensive. And then I finally
Yep.
did it. And I was like, okay, well, that sucked, but I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've done it
I
6
did
more
it. Yeah.
times since. Like,
That's amazing.
and
Good
one
for
of them I
you.
did
Good
zero
for you.
training for, which was, I do not recommend 0 out of 10 train for a half marathon. But I still did it because I knew I could. I mean, my
Yes.
time was awful, but I was still able to do it. And
Yeah.
now I know I can. So now going into like 10Ks and 5Ks, I'm like, I got this. And like,
Yep.
it's just so different. And it's only been a year. I did 6 in a year. Again, 0 to 10. Do not recommend that
Oh
either.
my goodness.
I
That's
did way too
amazing.
many. I did way too many in
That's
one
a
year.
lot. Yeah.
Don't do that. I'm a very competitive person. So once I did one, I was like, I got to beat it. Oh, I got to beat it
You gotta
again.
go again.
And I
Yeah.
just kept going until I had a coach finally sit me down. They're like, what are you racing so much for? Like, what is your goal here? And I was like, to get better. And they're like, you don't have to do it monthly. Like,
You can span it out.
they're like, it doesn't change if you wait and let your body recover. And I was like, oh, and then I finally did that. And suddenly like my times dropped huge amounts because I finally had recovery. Like it's crazy how mindsets can change and get you going through something. When you were going
100%.
through your transformation, so you had a
Mm-hmm.
huge change because you had the weight loss and you had the mindset shift. Like you had a lot that you were going through all at one time. What was some of the really big challenges that that you hit that a lot of other people more than likely also kind of suffer through in the process? And how did you overcome those?
Yeah. I think there's always in the back, I mein, even today, right? Like I told you, I struggle with the food aspect all the time. And I find myself like, I will look at pictures of myself and I'll be like, oh man, I was really skinny back then, wasn't I? And like, my mind immediately goes back to that weight, like of, yeah, and you were a size 4 and like this, and this, right? But wasn't sustainable. And so I think it just is that, like learning to be present where I am now and being intentional and enjoying everything that I'm doing along the way. Cause the journey that we have is a constant journey, right? It's never like you reach one milestone, and then that's it. Like nothing ever happens. Right. So learning to be present in where I am now, not regretting what I could or couldn't do before, and being able to use that in where I am and what I'm doing in my own life, in my business life, with my daughters, just all of those things. I think we forget very often to be present. And I was talking to a friend the other day at the gym, and it's almost like we delay our happiness.
Oh yeah.
Because
you chase one goal and then you keep going after the next
keep
one.
Chasing. Yeah. And we're not satisfied ever. Right. So like to remember all of those small steps that we did to get here, that was a really, really big thing altogether. And it's so easy to get caught up in that. And so that has been every day for me, something to just like, stop, Kristy. This is where we are. This is what we're doing. We're grateful for this, moving forward. So I think I see that a lot, especially with the women that I work with too. And it's a constant reminder, like, yeah, but look where you were a year ago. Right?
Exactly. Right.
What have you done? And then they're like, oh my goodness, that's right. And so all of those little tiny baby steps that we think are irrelevant, they're actually really, really big pieces to our puzzle. So that has been something for me that I live it because I teach it to my clients too. So I have to be able to, be able to experience that as well, for them.
Yeah. Because the person you were a year ago would have killed to be who you are now.
100%.
And that goes for everything, like runners and people going through weight loss or whatever it is. You feel like you're not making progress fast enough, or you just keep moving the bar. And like you said, you don't celebrate where you've come from already.
Yeah.
Like you're like, okay, we'll just reverse you back to a year ago. Are you cool with that? No. Oh, there's something to celebrate then. Right. Like,
well, yeah. And actually I was thinking about it the other day too. And I was like, probably the person that I was a year ago, if I knew where I would be today, I wouldn't have wanted to do, like, I wouldn't have wanted to do all of the hard things that I had to do to get here. Right.
And you did a lot of hard things.
Yes.
Like I remember looking through, like when you said like your list of accomplishments, like this girl is amazing.
But I wouldn't have done that. Right. Like if I would have known now what I knew then, I wouldn't have signed up for anything that I had done.
Right. And I'm going to brag on you for a second. Okay. Kristy has done CrossFit, which is something I haven't even done. I haven't gotten the guts to go in a CrossFit gym. I have a lot of friends who do it. I can't. You've also run a half marathon, so you know the struggle of doing that. But you've also done a 10K Spartan Trail Race, which my third episode ever on this podcast was about Spartan races. It was literally me talking to my friend who does them all the time going, yeah, I can't do that. That is way too hard. Obstacles
I
as
listened
well.
to that episode actually.
Like they tricked me into buying the shoes. So that I have the shoes now that are made to get clean. So I might be doing one.
Go into it. Well, what I will say,
that you did that, like, that's amazing.
Yeah. So what I will say is this: I did none of those things by myself. A bunch of us did the half marathon together at the gym. And that was one of those things where like I questioned if I should do it. And the coach was like, Kristy, do the training. And the worst case, like you're going to cross the finish line, right? Like it doesn't matter what your time is. And again, right, going back to, we're just racing against ourselves. Like I had never done that before. So I didn't have a time to beat. It's not like, like I had a time to beat. And then the Spartan, again, the 10K, I was like, 10K is nothing now.
You did double that.
And yeah, I did double that. And my friend saw it and she was like, Kristy, let's do it. It's the trail run. There was no obstacles. What I will say is there was no obstacles.
So you had on the trail. Either one that's still hard. Trail running, I've done one.
Oh, that was
not going back.
Well, okay. So let me just say this. The half marathon that I did, it was very monotonous for me. I felt like I was just like going. The Spartan, I had to be like focused every step because I didn't know if the rock was going to fall, if there was like a creek that I was going to have to jump over. So I felt that was more like I felt more challenged with that one, I think, than the half
You
marathon,
had to be
just
more
because my
present too.
mind wasn't totally more present.
See, I
And
zone
again,
out
though,
in a half and I love it. I'm just like looking around,
well,
sightseeing, like
yeah,
just chilling. I've
that was it.
actually tripped over something. It was actually like a
Oh
fast
no,
food cup that was somehow in the road that they didn't clean up before the race, because who would clean up a road race? And I
right,
like tripped over because I just wasn't looking. I don't look down. I look forward. That's where I'm headed. And I look
straight.
sideways and I look, I'm just chilling. All of a sudden I was like, okay, why was that here? like I looked at the
Yeah,
ground so angry.
why? Um, yeah, that was the big difference for me, was the like just having to be much more present in it. And it's funny because we both, my friend and I, we were like, oh yeah, 10K, we can do that like in an hour. We'll be done. Well, it took us like an hour and a half, I think,
Yeah,
maybe.
because the
Um,
obstacles would slow you. Well, not obstacles, but
it was
the rocks and the
like,
jumps and
yep,
stuff slow you down a lot. That
yeah,
is
yeah,
another thing I think with trail running that I got to get my mindset fixed, because I would try to compare it to my road race times,
yes,
and you can't
totally different.
compare it. It's apples and
Yeah,
oranges. Like they're
totally
so
different.
different. But I
Yeah,
might get there.
yeah.
Like I said, I have the trail
It's
shoes now. I'm getting
yeah, it's
closer.
well, and I did go get fitted for the trail shoes because I was like, I don't want to break my ankle. I don't want to like, do all like hurt myself. So I did get fitted for the trail shoes. And I had proper, well, that was another thing too. Like with the running, I had never had proper quote unquote running shoes before. I had never been fitted for them. I was just wearing my regular sneakers, like my runners that I had gotten. I didn't realize there's like a whole process
Oh
to
yeah,
being fitted and having it bigger than like your regular size, so like your toe doesn't jam into it. Like it really
there's a
was.
lot.
There's a lot. It's
When I
not
started
just
working at the running
running.
store, I was like,
Yes, yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. So just that piece of it too. um like you just see people running on the road and you're like, oh yeah, okay, but then actually no, like it's there's a lot that goes into it. So it's been the whole thing has been an experience for me.
it's amazing though. The fact that you did, like the accomplishment that you did
Thank
that,
you.
plus you do all the strength side. Like I am in awe. I couldn't do it. I'm gonna try to do it. I have a very I know what my weakness is, and my mindset is definitely a weakness for me. My mind
Yeah,
tells me what I can't do, and I listen to it
yeah,
a lot more than I should, and which is why I preach on here. Don't listen to your mind, as I'm also preaching
yeah.
at myself. Like I'm fully aware I am not perfect. I am working on things, right? When
Right.
you were
Yep.
training for all those things, were you still going to the CrossFit gym at the same time? So you were
I
doing like all of
was.
it.
Yep. I did find that like I would, so Tuesdays typically are my day where I don't go to the gym. They just don't have a class that like fits into it. So those have kind of been like my active rest days, if you will. But those were the days in that I was training I was doing my long runs for the half marathon. I was, we were training on the trails for the Spartan. Um, and so I had to modify, and that was tough for me too, because I had to modify my training at the gym in order to accommodate both of the runs. And again, my mind was like, well, Kristy, if you stop doing that, then you're going to gain the weight back. You're going to not, have as much muscle as you want to. So talk about your mindset, right? Like it plays with your mind because there's always something to like, you know, make yourself go crazy. I just knew that I didn't want to hurt myself because I had never done this before the half marathon. I had never run more than 3 miles. And that wasn't even like in my wheelhouse. So I just knew that I didn't want to hurt myself. So I had to just stay very focused with both trainings. Yeah.
You did so good because you did it and you survived it, right? And you're
Yes,
not
I did.
injured. I don't see a walker in the background.
Nope. I did not die.
How did you feel like you had to change your nutrition as you added this running on top of your strength? Because, like you mentioned, you had to kind of adapt because that was a big difference. So, your nutrition had to have changed a little bit. Because I know lifters and CrossFit, you do a lot of protein, and not everyone does a huge amount of carbs. But when you're doing something like a long distance run, like a half marathon, you do have to increase your carbs. And that can
Yeah.
be difficult for people, especially those who have gone through weight loss, because one of the most common things you hear is carbs are your enemy. They're not, but that's what you
Exactly.
hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did you get through kind of like the change in your nutrition and the mindset that came with having to make that change? Because I'm sure you also had to increase your calories as well.
I did. So it's interesting. I used to be really obsessive with my calories, with tracking my calories on my Fitness Pal, and like so obsessive. And so I had gotten to a point where I wasn't even tracking those. Back in May, I guess like a year ago, I actually had started with a coach, Steph Gaudreau. And she's a lifting coach for women over 40. And because I knew that I was not fueling my body the way that I wanted to at the gym, like I could already tell that there was something that was not right. So I started with her. And then what I was able to do was to adapt that with my running training. And so she was very helpful with that. But talk about a mindset shift with the carbs, because like the week before the half marathon, you know, we're carb loading. We are just like, we're eating, right? And even now today, like with my Fitness Pal, I'll go in every now and then just to play around with it and to put my calories in. The minute it starts going above 1700, I start to like
Freak out,
panic,
even though you don't need to.
even though I don't need to, because that's how I'm eating every day. But it's that number, right, that has like been programmed into my brain. So Steph was really great, being able to kind of walk me through that. And again, right, so like in all of my steps with my journey, I didn't do it by myself. I had somebody leading me. I had somebody guiding me who knew what they were doing, because this was all brand new to me. Even though I knew nutrition, I didn't know nutrition for, like you said, for CrossFit. I didn't know nutrition for a half marathon and running. So those were things that I had to learn. And then like now I know. So now I can like move and, eat a little bit differently. But I realized too during that process, especially with the half marathon, my alcohol was a big, like I'm not a big drinker, but like a couple nights having a glass of wine here or there, that really affected my running. I didn't realize that.
It's a
like,
huge
it's
amount.
crazy. Yeah.
I'm not a big drinker either, but every once in a while, like we'll go have a beach day or, go to the pool or just something. And I'll realize the next day when I try to run, it's just like, oh, this sluggish feeling. And it's because it dehydrates you. It causes you to retain water, but not in the way like carbs cause you to retain water, because it's connected to glycogen. Glycogen equals fuel. Alcohol causes you to retain water for some reason, but not in any way that's useful to exercise. And it's awful.
No. Yeah, it is. And so that was something like 2 weeks before the half marathon. I was like, no, we're not having anything. And I actually stuck with that. So the half marathon was October 30th of last year. And I didn't have anything until January.
That's a big time. And that's good. That's awesome.
And I felt so good. Like I felt really, really good. I had more energy. I was sleeping better. And I was like, oh, there is something that to be said about even just a couple glasses of wine a week. Like it just really makes a difference. So
it does. It starts to add up in just ways that you wouldn't expect it to.
Exactly.
It's just small things.
Yeah. So right?
Oh, go ahead.
All those no, I was just going to say, like, again, it's all those little small things that we do that we don't think adds up to anything, but it really does.
It's actually one of my favorite quotes is small steps, no matter how small they are, still add up to big results.
100%.
Like it could be the tiniest little change, but if you make 5 tiny changes, well, now you made a pretty big change. Like it keeps adding together, and it's just amazing. How did the transformation you made, not make, the transformation that you made really affect your self-confidence and body image? Because I'm sure there had to have been a difference from when you started to now. Because you've kind of mentioned about how like you don't worry about the scale anymore. You worry about how you feel. Like how does that like affect your life and just kind of help you just feel happier?
It's so interesting that you say that. So it's a joke my husband and I have, because he's always known me to work to be skinny and to lose weight and to like always have the salads and like all the things. So when I started at the gym and I started lifting heavier and like coming home and being like, guess what I deadlifted today? It was like, and so he was joking. He's like, yeah, it's your muscles that are hungry, right? When I'm eating all the time. He's like, oh, you got to feed your muscles. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. I have to feed my muscles. Do you know what I did this morning?
You do.
So You do. They're hungry all the time. And it took him, I actually have a post on it. It took him 700 days. So just over, like just under 2 years, right? Like 700 days for him to understand that process with me and be able to encourage me and come alongside of me. But I started doing things at home that I've never done before. And I start like, I'm walking around with, just I exuding that confidence because I feel empowered, right? I feel empowered. I feel like I can do anything, especially walking out of, whatever I just did at the gym or like crossing that half marathon. Like I remember crying, crossing that finish line because I was like, I can never go back before that finish line, right? Like that was some Kristy that was like never even there. And so it's
Kristy,
just
the half marathoner.
exactly. I know. And like, who would have thought? Right. So
I would have thought I was crazy if you told me I was going to be this person who signs up for marathons like, on purpose. Like what? Like no one's got a gun to my head. I'm doing this on purpose. Why?
Right. And it's funny. Like I feel more energetic now, 3 months from being 50 than I did when I was 30 and even like 25, right? I'm doing more things now than I've ever done in my life. And I still every morning wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I'm doing this, that I want to do this, that I get to do this. So it's just been a really cool process. And then just having my husband come alongside of me, which took, a heck of a long time.
Takes a while to get men to catch up.
Yep. And he still will walk by me and he'll look at me and he's like, it's the muscles, right? And I'm like, yep, it's the muscles. Like now, that's what it is. But my little one, my 9-year-old has started to take one-on-one coaching at the gym with my coach, and her confidence has soared like so tremendously. And so that is just something that I see too in her. And like, you have to like feel that, right? Like that's something that just doesn't happen. And so, it's just, I don't know, lifting and knowing what my body can do has been able to really give me the confidence to do things that I never ever thought that I could.
It's so true. And that's happened to so many people I know that as soon as they get in the gym, you're like, I'm freaking superwoman. What are you talking about?
Yeah, like I'm a badass.
You love it in the end. How do you think your fitness journey is going to continue to evolve? Because you seem to really like finding a new challenge. What do you think your next challenge is going to be?
Well, so I have not made this public, but maybe this is the first time that we make it public. I see myself somehow. So I would love to take my L1 certification for CrossFit. So that's level 1. To be able to help the women more that I'm coaching as far as movement, and be able to like mesh the food and movement together, because women my age, unfortunately, it's not common that we are pushing our bodies and we are doing those things. And so I just want to show women what it's possible. So I do foresee in the next 6 months or so that happening, and then me being able to use that in my coaching that I'm already doing. And who knows if there's another half marathon or another Spartan or somewhere else that I will go.
Do it.
Yeah. But
I like running, so I will always encourage running races.
It's, it's fun. It's a one-time thing. It's fun. And I found also too that it's a way to travel, right? So like if you
I want to do one in every state. I know that's really far out because of money, but that's one of my goals before I die.
That's awesome.
I want to go around the country. Awesome. I've hit 2 states, so I'm getting there.
You're almost
2 states in.
I'm kidding. Yeah, 2 states in. But I think, that's also something too, that like traveling is a really big thing. And I'd love to be able to do that and see different parts. And you see different parts when you're on the ground, right? Than when you're flying in the air. So
like when I went to the Charleston one, I looked at Charleston so differently.
Yes.
When you get to just run through the middle of Main Street and through the Battery, and like, it's just stuff that you don't see when you're in a car because you're going too fast and you're boxed in.
Exactly.
Like, it's the same way you see things differently on a motorcycle. Like,
100%. Yeah.
Like totally. It's so different, the different perspectives, and I love it. If any of our listeners wanted to find you for weight loss help or nutrition help in general, how could they find you?
Instagram is the easiest place to find me. And I make it really easy. So my name is Kristy with a K. So it's all one word together, clean eating with Kristy, and the clean is a K as well. So clean eating with Kristy on Instagram. And I actually, on my stories, I share a lot of just daily recipes that I use, kitchen hacks, tips that like hopefully make your life easier on my stories. And then on my feed, of course, we've got different stuff going on. But yeah, Instagram's the best place.
I will make sure to put that in the show notes. So any of you guys
Thank
out there, whether you're driving or running, I know most of you, from what I've been told, you listen to this while you're running. So I will
That's
make sure that's
awesome.
there. So when you get home, you can go find Kristy and get all of that wonderful knowledge. All right, Kristy, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it. I feel like we could have just kept talking for hours. I feel like I said that at the end of every single interview, though.
I know.
Because it's
Yeah,
like-minded
fun.
people. It's so much fun. But I
It is,
appreciate
yeah.
it. And again, if anyone wants to find Kristy, find her on Instagram and she will be there for you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, runners, for spending time with me and listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, please hit that subscribe button and leave me a review. I always love to hear from my listeners. And if you want more Let's Run Fit in your life, find me on Instagram at Let's Run Fit with DLit. Until next time, runners. The information in this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for medical or professional advice. Please always consult a medical professional if you're seeking medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The Let's Run Fit podcast is not liable for risk or issues associated with using or acting upon the information in this podcast.